A boy returns after a trip to the grocery store. While walking, he overhears a family discussing their daughter's upcoming birthday celebration. The mother expresses her excitement about the cake she has bought, and the daughter beams with happiness at the news. He believes every family holds secrets, and this one must have its own hidden stories. Upon arriving at the Comrabi orphanage, he is surprised to learn that a family wants to adopt him immediately. He questions why they would choose a 14-year-old like him instead of a younger child. The attendant lady informs him that the family has chosen him and reassures him that he could live in the orphanage until he turns 18 if he doesn't like it. However, he is not thrilled by this prospect. He has spent the last 10 years in the orphanage, and the idea of becoming part of a family at his age feels daunting. He has already envisioned a bachelor life for himself as soon as he turns 18 and is saving money from his part-time job delivering newspapers. The lady offers him 1,000 yen to stay with the family for 3 days, and he immediately accepts. The next day, he arrives at the Hirage household, an elegant traditional building that radiates wealth and comfort. He assumes it's typically older couples who adopt teenagers like him and expects to meet an elderly man and woman with outdated tastes. He reminds himself that he only needs to endure this family for 3 days to earn the money. As he rings the doorbell, a girl's voice announces his arrival to her mother. The door swings open to reveal the Hiragi family, who welcome him warmly. He is astonished by their refined demeanor, a sophisticated lady and gentleman, accompanied by their 2 daughters. They invite him inside and offer him tea, encouraging him to feel at home. The matriarch of the family introduces herself as Mizore, and without hesitation, she introduces the rest of the family. The eldest daughter, Harumi, a 19-year-old college freshman, greets him enthusiastically. The youngest, Mime, is 13 and just starting her first year of middle school. Finally, the father, Yakumo, steps forward and extends him a warm welcome. Noticing that they are a well-off and comfortable family of 4, he can't help but wonder why they would want to adopt someone like him. He introduces himself as Shota Minamoto, a 14-year-old and second-year middle school student. Harumi and Mime ask if they can call him Shota, to which he shyly agrees. As they chat, Harumi whispers to Mime about how Shota seems delicious, leaving him puzzled about what she means. Mime quickly scolds Harumi for talking too much, but Harumi playfully insists it was just a compliment. Mizuru explains that they have only daughters in the family and want to adopt a son. This thought makes Shota wonder whether they are looking for an heir. Despite his initial skepticism about their intentions, he reminds himself that he only needs to endure this arrangement for 3 days to secure his payment. Mizuru announces that it's lunchtime and urges everyone to gather at the table. With a platter of delectable sushi in front of him, he eagerly digs in, devouring the food with enthusiasm. Mizuru watches with a smile, commenting on how much he can eat, noting that he is a growing boy. Shota is happy as it's his first time eating sushi. Noticing their watchful eyes, Shota feels shy and realizes he's the only one eating. They encourage him not to be shy and to eat as much as he wants. Hearing this, he smiles and digs in even more, happily remarking, "This is delicious." After lunch, while washing dishes in the kitchen, he reflects on how he initially intended not to get too comfortable. Yet realizing he's already indulging in their kindness, he decides to take on the task of doing the dishes. He notices some food wrapped up for later and wonders if someone plans to eat it later. Suddenly, Mizuru enters the kitchen, surprised to see that he's already finished washing the dishes. She praises him warmly, calling him such a good child. Her gentle touch on his head stirs emotions within him. He wonders if this is what a mother's hand feels like. Later, lying outside on a wooden board under the sun, Shota contemplates what to do now that Mizuru has encouraged him to take things easy. He decides to explore the house when Yakumo calls out to him just before leaving for work. Yakumo apologizes for not being able to spend time with Shota but hands him some pocket money for his own use while expressing that he can ask for more if needed. Shota stares in disbelief at the 10,000 yen Yakumo gives him. It feels surreal how easily money comes into his hands here. He decides to keep it as savings. Noticing 5 pairs of shoes lined up beside the shoe rack, he wonders who owns the extra pair. Suddenly, Harumi rushes out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel and asks about shampoo. Startled by her appearance, Shota turns red with embarrassment as she accidentally bumps into him. She quickly apologizes for the mishap before hurrying away, leaving him flustered. Mime comes and sits beside him, curious about why he is blushing. She asks if he can help her study since they are both in middle school, with him being 1 year older than her. She wonders if he understands systems of equations. Shota tries to refuse, but she asks if he hates her. Flustered, he quickly replies that he doesn't, prompting her to say that it's perfectly fine to study together. Just then, Harumi returns with shampoo in her hand and invites Shota to take a bath with her, a suggestion that leaves him utterly shocked. Mime interjects that they cannot go because they are supposed to study together. The two girls pull on his arms from opposite sides as they argue over who gets to spend time with him first. Confused, he exclaims that he won't do either. He wonders if this is what having siblings feels like. At nightfall, while brushing his teeth with toothpaste, Shota realizes it's his first time in a luxurious bath equipped with a jacuzzi, an experience that truly highlights how wealthy this family is. As he looks around, he notices 5 toothbrushes in the basket near the sink and wonders if one of them might be meant for him, despite having brought his own. After exiting the bathroom, he spots something peculiar, a locked room with keys hanging from its lock. His curiosity intensifies as he wonders what lies inside this forbidden space. Just then, Miser appears with a tray of food she had saved earlier from dinner and warns him that this room is off limits before wishing him good night. Later that night, lying alone on the carpet in his spacious room, Shota reflects on how different this place is from the orphanage. He thinks back on everything he has observed throughout the day, contemplating the hidden secrets this family might hold. Despite his curiosity, he decides not to pry into matters that don't concern him. All things considered, he realizes this house is wonderful and lacks any major shortcomings. As he contemplates his situation, he wonders if becoming part of this family could genuinely bring him happiness, despite all the uncertainties. Suddenly, he succumbs to temptation and resolves to investigate the locked room. He opens the door cautiously, thinking it resembles some kind of condiment room. As the door creaks open, he finds himself face to face with what appears, at first glance, to be a monster, a creature with skin stretched tightly over its bones, resembling something out of a nightmare. Panic surges through Shota as the creature suddenly lunges toward him, grabbing his neck. Frightened, he realizes that it's a human, but one who is nothing but skin and bones. The rest of the Hiragi family rushes into the room upon hearing the commotion. Miser exclaims joyfully that Shota opening the door himself has saved them some trouble. Shota is bewildered and asks Miser what she means, but she ignores him, turning to Yuki with instructions on what needs to be done next. A sense of dread fills the room as Yuki tightens her grip on him. Harumi chimes in, ominously suggesting that if Yuki doesn't follow through, she'll face dire consequences herself. Confusion washes over Shota. How could anyone even suggest such violence? Yuki's eyes well up with tears as she begins to sob, profusely apologizing before suddenly sinking her teeth into Shota's neck. The moment is filled with dread, yet it feels oddly surreal as pain courses through him. After what feels like an eternity filled with fear and uncertainty, Yuki's blood-sucking frenzy abruptly comes to an end, and she collapses onto the floor, unconscious. Shota sits there, puzzled, as the rest of the Hiragi family stares wide-eyed at him, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief at his still being fine. Harumi questions in shock if Shota is truly alive despite having his blood sucked, and the entire family looks equally astonished. In this moment, filled with simultaneous shock and strangely enlightening clarity, Shota realizes just how intertwined blood-sucking circumstances are within vampire families like the one he has unexpectedly found himself in. He grasps that his fate is now forever linked to theirs, thrust into a world he never imagined he would be a part of. At midnight, after the chilling blood-sucking incident, Shota is consumed by the shocking revelation that the entire Hiragi family are vampires. Mr. Yakumo, the father, calmly reveals their dark lineage, explaining that they come from a long line of bloodsuckers. With little emotion, he discloses their grim plan, to kill Shota to ensure their survival. The weight of this revelation overwhelms Shota, leaving him reeling. Yakumo adds that their decision is particularly for the sake of their second daughter, Yuki, whose weakened state depends on it. He elaborates on the vampire's thirst and the withdrawal symptoms they experience when unable to feed. He further explains that while vampires can survive on transfusions and corpses, once they reach a certain growth stage like Yuki, they require fresh blood from a living human. Shota realizes with a chill that they have chosen him, an orphan, to be their source of sustenance. The unsettling thought leaves him shaken as he wonders how a family like this could even exist. Yakumo questions how Shota remains alive after having his blood sucked, explaining that when a human gets their blood sucked by a vampire they die from shock and blood loss. Shota admits he felt dizzy but nothing more severe. Harumi, the eldest daughter, expresses concern about whether he will die later. Just then, Yuki wakes up and mentions that she couldn't drink much of his blood because it is rich in flavor, even a little could suffice. Yakumo speculates that Shota's blood might possess special antibodies and nutritional value, making him an ideal source for them. The family expresses happiness at finding someone like him who could serve as a live blood transfusion pack. Harumi asks if she can taste his blood, prompting Shota to flee the room in panic. Determined to escape this nightmarish situation, Shota rushes down the hall but soon finds himself trapped in a jail cell hidden within the house. His heart races as he realizes he is locked away. He calls out for help, desperate for someone to rescue him. Mizore, the matriarch, appears and tells him it is futile to cry out. He cannot return home because he knows their secret. Yakumo chillingly reminds him that dead men tell no tales. Shota begs them to let him go, but they ignore his pleas, arguing that he will waste away within a month regardless. Instead, they suggest preserving what they've already taken from him. Shota proposes to sell them his blood for 100,000 yen, explaining that he's only staying for 3 days. In exchange for the money, he promises to willingly offer his blood and asks them to release him afterward. He assures them that if they pay him, he will forget all about their family secret. Amused by Shota's bold offer, Mizore chuckles but ultimately dismisses the idea. As Yakumo bids Shota goodnight and prepares to leave the room, Yuki suddenly interrupts, expressing her desire to accept Shota's terms. She argues that if he willingly gives his blood in exchange for money, no one needs to die for her survival. Mizore, smiling, agrees to give Shota a chance over the next 2 days. The next morning, Shota wakes up, rubbing his neck as the surreal events of the previous night flood back into his mind, reminding him that it wasn't a dream, everything had been painfully real. As he wonders what might have happened if Yuki hadn't agreed to his conditions, the sounds of movement from within the house catch his attention. As Shota enters the living room, he is greeted by Mizore, who cheerfully says good morning and asks if he slept well. He hesitates to reply when suddenly Mime walks in wearing her pajamas. Mizore gently reminds her to get ready for school and not doze off again. Mime grumbles about her reluctance to attend her swimming class that day. Harumi calls out from the kitchen, announcing that they're out of tomato juice. Mizore comments that Yakumo must have forgotten to pick some up, but Mime admits it was actually her who forgot to buy it. As Shota brushes his teeth, he can't help but reflect on how the tomato juice stereotype about vampires is, surprisingly, true. Mizore suggests ordering breakfast from McDonald's through Uber, and everyone quickly agrees, even though Harumi expresses concerns about her diet. She insists that she can treat herself just a little today. Shota, taken aback, wonders if anything is okay. Suddenly, Yuki appears in her school uniform, declaring that she feels completely fine now. Shota, shocked, questions whether she's the same person he encountered before, while everyone else expresses relief at how well she looks after her recovery. Mime hugs Yuki tightly, voicing her concerns about her sister's condition during her illness. Shota wonders if his blood has contributed to her improved health. Just then, Yakumo enters with glasses of tomato juice but accidentally spills them all over Yuki and Mime. Laughter erupts in the room, and Shota watches the scene unfold around him. As Yakumo apologizes while drenched in tomato juice, Mizore quickly grabs towels for everyone, while Harumi teasingly calls Yuki a clumsy girl. Shota contemplates whether this is what families are truly like. In the afternoon, boredom settles in as Shota sits by the window, feeling the heat of the sun's rays. He's wearing shoes when Mizore arrives and asks if he's heading out somewhere. He mentions that he needs to go shopping because there doesn't seem to be anything left to eat in the house. He puts on his cap and assures her that he won't run away, at least not without getting his money first. Mizore smiles, saying that would actually help her out. On his way back from shopping, Shota reflects on how heavy the bags feel when Yuki unexpectedly approaches him and questions whether they're letting him outside without any restrictions. Noticing the weight of his bags, she offers to help carry one, mentioning that she's on her way back from summer classes. He nods in response. As they walk together, Shota thanks Yuki for saving his life and helping him escape the cell earlier. Sensing the awkwardness between them, he reflects on how many unexpected things have unfolded since he arrived at this house full of secrets. Shota tells Yuki that once he gets his payment, he'll forget about her and her family. He adds that, to him, it's just a well-paying part-time job and reassures her that she can ask for his blood whenever she needs it. Suddenly, Yuki turns to him, calling him an idiot for taking the situation so lightly, adding that he's a complete fool if he believes he'll walk away alive. She vents her frustration, mentioning how they locked her up even though she told them she'd rather die than hurt anyone. Startled, Shota recalls the locked room and comments on how exhausting it must be, even for a vampire like her, before casually saying that it doesn't matter as long as she's doing well. Her anger flares as she questions if he even understands what he's just said. She grabs his collar, shouting furiously, if he hadn't come, she would have been dead by now. Overwhelmed by the intense emotions between them, Shota stands frozen, watching as she storms off, leaving him alone with his racing thoughts. He wonders to himself if it isn't just about sucking someone's blood. Could there be more to it than he realizes? Suddenly, she turns to him with a faintly regretful smile and says she wouldn't expect a human to understand, leaving him puzzled. As he watches her walk away, her words linger, feeling distant and unreachable. At the Komorebi orphanage, the other children plead with Shota not to leave, telling him they'll be lonely without him. He reassures them with a promise that he'll return in 3 days. But now that promise weighs heavily on him, knowing his savings aren't enough to help them all. As night falls, Shota sits outside the Hirage household, reflecting on Yuki's words, and her claim that she could have died if he hadn't come. Harumi joins him, licking an ice pop, and casually asks if Yuki hasn't drunk his blood yet, adding that Yuki has a lot going on. Curious, Shota asks if the boy Harumi fed on during her growth phase has died. Harumi points to a spot in the garden and, without hesitation, reveals that he's buried there. She then asks Shota to keep it a secret. Shota feels uncertain whether Harumi is joking or serious, admitting that, as an orphan, he struggles to understand family dynamics. He acknowledges that every family has its own set of worries. Curious, Harumi asks about his desperation for money, questioning whether he plans to live on his own. He quickly clarifies that he doesn't intend to use the money for himself. Harumi then reminds him that their contract is nearing its end and pointedly wonders what will happen if Yuki doesn't drink his blood by tomorrow. Without it, he won't receive any payment. Shota, flustered and panicked by the reminder, watches as Harumi smiles and bids him sweet dreams before leaving him. The following morning, Shota, desperate and anxious about their deal, tears his shirt and begs Yuki to bite him and drink his blood. She looks at him with a mix of frustration and confusion, questioning why he's so insistent before coldly telling him to be gone. Without agreeing to his request, she leaves, leaving Shota stunned and wondering why she's so determined to refuse. As Yuki prepares to leave for school, Maizora, their mother, asks about her lunch plans. Yuki replies that she'll buy something on the way. Maizora, concerned, notes that Yuki looks even more haggard than the previous day. Mime, puzzled, wonders aloud why Yuki refuses to drink Shota's blood, especially since it seems so tempting. Harumi, with a knowing smirk, suggests that Yuki must be feeling conflicted. After all, just one taste of Shota's scrumptious, fresh blood would likely leave her wanting more. Mime, intrigued, expresses her own desire to try Shota's blood, making Harumi sigh in exasperation. She calls Yuki a foolish girl, clearly frustrated with her sister's reluctance to indulge. Determined, Shota trails behind Yuki, pleading for her to drink just one small sip of his blood. He insists that if she doesn't, her family will lock him up again. Yuki, unfazed, suggests he run away instead, but Shota bluntly retorts that he wouldn't get his money that way. Frustrated, she dismisses him and runs off. At the train station, Yuki boards a train with Shota close behind, her haggard expression catching his attention. He asks if she's all right and insists again that she'll feel better if she drinks his blood. Dumbfounded by his persistence, Yuki bolts away once more. Later, as she purchases lunch at a convenience store, Shota confidently claims that his blood tastes better than anything she's bought. Irritated, she races to school. Catching her breath by the shoe locker, she notices Shota still following her. Annoyed, Yuki forbids him from following her all the way to school. Shota, undeterred, curiously glances around. He comments that security at high schools is typically lax during summer break, and despite her warnings, decides to follow her into the school. As Yuki opens the door to the rooftop, she stumbles and collapses onto the floor, pleading for Shota to give her a break. Seizing the opportunity, Shota declares he has cornered her and urges her once again to drink his blood so he can receive his payment of 100,000 yen. She looks up at him with a weary, defeated expression before suddenly leaping from the building, prompting Shota to question, since when can vampires fly? Shocked, Shota grabs her arm just in time, shouting that death is never a solution to any problem, no matter how dire the circumstances may seem. His voice takes on an urgent tone as he asks why she's being so stubborn about everything. Yuki, with a voice full of frustration, admits she's fed up with life itself and just wants it all to end. Shota refuses to accept that. He insists there's no way he will let her die, unable to understand why she has such dark thoughts when people obviously care about her. In their struggle, his arm scrapes against the rough wall, causing it to bleed. Yuki glances at the blood with a faint smile and wonders why things always turn out like this. Before Shota can pull them both to safety, his grip slips. Unable to hold on any longer, they tumble down together. Yuki lands gracefully on her feet, while Shota crashes into the ground with a thud. Dazed and sore, he sits up, realizing the fall wasn't as far as it had seemed. She had only been trying to escape, not truly harm herself. He notices Yuki collapse, exhausted from the ordeal. Shota moves toward her, offering up his still bleeding arm, telling her to drink as it's just blood that he'll wash off, adding that it will be a waste not to. Gazing at the sight of Shota's bleeding arm, Yuki's eyes fill with tears. She cries out in anguish, telling him that she won't forgive him. Her voice trembling with rage and despair, she adds it's his fault for making her an unrepentant murderer. If he hadn't come into her life, she would have chosen death. She wouldn't have had to endure this existence of endless misery. Her voice cracks as she demands that he take responsibility. She begins drinking his blood. Shota, surprisingly calm, reassures her that he won't die from this. As Yuki drinks her fill, she remarks that it's delicious. Her words make Shota blush, a wave of embarrassment washing over him. She then suddenly asks why he is so obsessed with money when it clearly can't buy happiness. Just looking at her family is proof of that. Shota hesitates for a moment before replying that it may be true, but it can still help. At the Hirage house, Shota and Yuki inform the family that Yuki has finally drunk his blood. Mr. Yakumo feels a wave of relief wash over him at the news, while Harumi expresses her concerns, telling Yuki not to make her worry about her well-being again. Mizuru hands Shota the payment as per their contract. However, instead of accepting it right away, he refuses and makes an unexpected request. He bows down before them and humbly pleads to be allowed into their family permanently, stating that it doesn't matter if they don't see him as a true family member, they can keep him around as a source of support for their needs moving forward into this new life together. Mime and Harumi react joyfully at the idea of Shota becoming a part of their lives in this way, with Harumi expressing excitement over having someone like him around. Mr. Yakumo stands silently, observing everything unfold, while Mizuru asks what has prompted this sudden change of heart. Shota explains that in exchange for officially joining their family, they must help support his orphanage. He emphasizes that their wealth could make a significant difference for the children left behind at the orphanage, which is struggling financially and on the brink of closing down without assistance. The Hirage family agrees wholeheartedly, welcoming Shota back into their household with open arms and warmth. At the entrance of the Komorebi orphanage, Shota stands with all his belongings packed tightly into his bags as the children gather around him, crying in sorrow, realizing their friend is leaving them behind forever. He thanks them for taking care of him for the last 10 years. A girl with tears in her eyes asks if he is really leaving, and an overwhelming wave of emotion crashes over him, causing tears to spring forth uncontrollably from his eyes, filled with memories shared among friends who have grown close over the years spent together within these walls, sheltering each other through daily hardships. He tells them to take care of themselves. Though he smiles outwardly through the pain he feels inside, Shota knows all too well what leaving means. It signifies starting anew as part of another family while leaving behind the cherished bonds forged through laughter and tears experienced side by side throughout their years of growing up together. The next morning, at Hiragi's house, Mizuru, the matriarch, explains that if Shota wishes to join them, he must fulfill one condition: keep their secret that they are vampires. Shota assures her that his lips are sealed tighter than anyone else's in the world. Harumi and Mime, his new sisters, tease him about what would happen if he were tortured with tickles to reveal their secret. Shota claims he is not ticklish, which Mime finds boring. Mr. Yakumo, the father, reassures Shota that they will send money to the orphanage every month. However, he warns that if Shota fails to honor his end of the contract, the financial support will cease. Shota agrees, noting that some families always come with conditions. He believes that families like that exist in the world. Mizuru then asks Yuki to show him to his room. Yuki tells Shota to follow her, and as he does, it dawns on him that from today, he finally has a family. Yuki teases him, saying he should be grateful to have the family he's always wanted. Shota fires back that he should be the one saying that. As they bicker, Harumi watches from behind a tree, pondering if, This isn't a sign of a friendly relationship in their own way. As they arrive at his new room, Shota admires its spaciousness, complete with a cupboard and carpet. He marvels at having such a large room and learns it was previously a storage area. Yuki shows him a variety of clothes she and her sisters have provided for him, stylish Western outfits that leave him in awe. He lays down on the carpet and expresses how amazing everything feels. Yuki tells him that if he wants something, he should ask their parents. She reminds him to get used to living in this house soon and mentions that once the summer holidays end, school will start. Surprised, Shova asks if he's going to school too, to which she replies that as a second-year middle school student, he needs to take his compulsory education seriously. She adds it will be helpful for her as well. Shota wonders if Yuki sees him as her possession, but she quickly grows frustrated and insists she's just advising him not to laze around at the house all day. At noon, Shota excitedly announces that the pizza has actually been delivered. The family gathers around, with Mime asking if it's for lunch, while Harumi sighs, reminding them that she's on a diet. Shota reveals that he ordered the pizza himself, thrilled that they delivered just because he called. Mizuru chimes in, mentioning that Shota has told her he'd never eaten delivered pizza before in his life. This piques the sisters' curiosity as they ask about his previous experiences. As Shota devours slice after slice of pizza with wild enthusiasm, Yuki questions whether he's eating too much. Harumi suggests they divide the pizza into equal parts, so everyone gets their fair share, but Mime points out that Shota has already eaten 5 slices. Mizuru contemplates what order Shota would be at home, with Harumi being 19, Yuki 16, Shota 14, and Mime 13 years old. Shota raises his hand insisting that he should be first, prompting the girls to question, why? He argues that since he has been in the orphanage longer than most children who leave at 5 years old, he should take precedence in their family hierarchy. Yuki counters that this is not an orphanage. Harumi mentions that logically he should be third. Mime, overjoyed, exclaims that she now has a little brother, to which Shota snaps back, saying that she is the last. Mr. Yakumo quietly nods in agreement, observing the playful banter. Later in the afternoon, Shota lies outside contemplating that after becoming part of the family, he has received clothes and can eat whatever he desires. He wonders if this newfound freedom equates to happiness, but feels an undercurrent of boredom as well. He initially feared being used as a slave but finds it is nothing like what he expected. His gaze catches Mizuru heading out for shopping. Intrigued, he follows her while whistling and offering help if needed. Mizuru explains she cannot accept his assistance because she is fulfilling her duty as a mother. She explains that each member of the family has their own role. They cooperate and support each other so they can continue to live. When Shota asks about his role within the family, she cryptically tells him that she hopes he will find it soon enough, prompting Shota to wonder if he has to find out for himself. They arrive at a butcher shop where Mizuru inquires about what they have on hand today. The butcher presents top-class marbled meat perfect for sukiyaki. As they converse about food choices, Shota realizes that despite being vampires, they eat normal food when they aren't craving blood. It's a strange contrast to what he imagined about their kind. Mizuru casually asks the butcher if he has a pig's heart, specifically requesting one freshly butchered with blood still dripping. Alarmed by her bold order, Shota quickly tries to shift the attention, asking what she plans to do with it, silently questioning why she'd make such a blatant display of their vampiric nature. The butcher, chuckling, remarks that the heart is too messy to eat and jokes. It's not like he's a vampire or something. Mizuru laughs along, nodding in agreement, playing off the remark with a light-hearted smile. Confused, Shota wonders what just transpired, unsure if the exchange was a joke or if Mizuru was somehow covering up the truth in plain sight. On their way back home, 2 ladies greet Mizuru warmly. One compliments her youthful appearance, attributing it to her slender figure, and eagerly asks for her secret method. Mizuru laughs and jokingly claims it's because she's a vampire, leaving Shota bewildered by her outright response. The other lady casually remarks that Shota must be fodder, causing him to stiffen in shock. However, Mizuru casually answers, that's it. They exchange pleasantries as if nothing unusual had been said, and the ladies continue on their way, reminding Mizuru to attend the neighborhood association meeting that evening. Shota watches them leave, still stunned by the nonchalant comment. Mizuru cryptically states that the best way to hide a tree is to place it within a forest, a comment that further confuses Shota. Soon after, Mr. Yakumo pulls up in an elegant classic car that instantly draws attention. He casually mentions that he's there to pick them up, leaving Shota stunned. As people gather to admire the car, one of them asks about its price. Mr. Yakumo calmly replies that it cost 4 digits, impressing the crowd. A passerby, clearly taken aback, says he wishes he could be like him, to which Shota quietly remarks that he's definitely someone to be admired. The crowd is amazed and whispers circulate among onlookers admiring the beauty and charm of the 3 Hiragi sisters who arrive at the scene together. They greet Shota and thank him for coming to pick them up, which immediately sparks jealousy from the other boys around him. Feeling embarrassed, Shota mutters that they stand out too much. He wonders if he even has what it takes to keep the family's secret hidden. Yuki teasingly suggests his stealthy demeanor makes him seem suspicious. He counters that he is not suspicious. He realizes that he's a member of an outrageous family. The sisters apologize for the limited seating in their car, mentioning it only fits 5 people. Shota, slightly annoyed, responds that their house is just 500 meters away from where they're standing. That night, as Shota lies in his new room, he reflects on Mizor's words about each family member having a specific role. He wonders what his place might be within this strange household. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted when Harumi suddenly bursts through the window, asking if he's still awake. As the night unfolds, Harumi excitedly informs Shota that it's time to hunt. Taken by surprise, he hesitates, but she urges him to follow her. Curiosity stirs within him as he wonders where this beautiful older sister plans to lead him. He can't help but think about the adventures that await under the cover of darkness with his newfound family. Shota leaps across rooftops with Harumi, wondering about their destination. When she mentions it's dinner time for vampires, his curiosity grows. She clarifies it means a demand for blood, leaving him to question if she plans to drink someone's blood at this hour. Leaping from building to building, Shota is struck by Harumi's athleticism. She urges him to stay quiet and follow, reminding him that Yuki should have explained vampires' extraordinary abilities. Shota reflects on the differences between vampires and humans, recalling Yuki's safe landing after a jump from the school building. Curious about their destination, Shota asks where Harumi is taking him. She teases that 2 people out late must be on a date, almost making him lose his balance. They arrive at a hospital, where a nurse named Sato is waiting on the terrace, mentioning her long wait. Noticing Shota, she asks if he, too, is a vampire. Harumi denies it and jokingly calls him fodder. Shota is startled by their casual exchange. The nurse hands Harumi a cooler, mentioning it's her monthly blood supply. Harumi thanks her, and Sato leaves, promising to check in later. Confused, Shota asks if the cooler contains expired blood transfusion bags. Harumi confirms, explaining she receives them monthly. Shota is relieved she doesn't harm anyone for blood. She jokes that she does indulge once in a while. Shota learns that vampires must secure their own supply upon turning 18. He empathizes, recognizing the challenges vampires face to survive. On their way back, they encounter a group of boys who invite Harumi to join them for some fun. One boy grabs her hand, teasing her about the cooler box she carries. When he tries to snatch it away, Shota intervenes, punching the boy and pushing him aside. The other boys turn their attention to Shota, and he kicks one away, assuring Harumi he will take care of it. Harumi hugs him tightly in gratitude, claiming she could have handled the situation but wanted to play with the boys a bit longer. Shota questions whether the situation could have escalated into something worse. Sitting on the roadside, Harumi begins to drink from one of the blood transfusion bags. Shota watches in disbelief as she consumes it like a child with a pacifier. She finds it delicious, noting that O-type blood is the most enjoyable. She asks how today's date was. Intrigued yet bewildered, Shota admits he has never been on a date before. Harumi playfully teases him, implying she has stolen his first date. He questions the sanity of considering a hospital date normal and urges her to avoid such risky endeavors, instead offering his blood as an alternative. Harumi wonders if that would be disrespectful to Yuki. Shota reminds her that one of the reasons he joined the Hiragi family was so his blood could be accessed when needed. With a bold demeanor, Harumi pushes him onto the ground, insisting that if he's offering, nothing can stop her. She then asks him to keep this a secret from the rest of the family. As Harumi prepares to drink from him, Shota feels nervous yet oddly comforted by the experience. When she begins licking his neck after taking a sip, he becomes flustered. Harumi admits it's her first time feeling this way and struggles to contain her excitement. She then asks him what he is. She pouts as Shota lifts her onto his shoulders, feeling embarrassed about being carried by someone younger. She playfully insists that he not mention this to anyone, adding that it was a fun date. At the Komaribi orphanage, a child presents a letter from Shota, which had been delivered to the director but secretly taken by him. Misuzu begins reading it aloud. In the letter, Shota shares details about his new life in the Hiragi household, highlighting the kindness of Mr. and Mrs. Hiragi and how his 3 new sisters make each day exciting. Another child remarks on how wonderful it must be to have 3 sisters and wonders if they are pretty. Upon seeing a picture of Shota happily posing with the Hiragi family, Misuzu feels a pang of jealousy. The other children express their envy, recognizing how fortunate Shota has become compared to their past life at the orphanage. Feeling betrayed, Misuzu asks if there's a return address, and one child warns against visiting without permission. She clenches her fist and accuses Shota of being a traitor for seemingly abandoning their friendship. Yuki is watering the garden when Shota's childhood friend Misuzu unexpectedly arrives. Later, Shota returns home with bags of ingredients that Mizore has requested. Mizore calls Shota over, and he heads straight for the drawing room. Upon entering, he is taken aback to see Misuzu sitting there. She greets him cheerfully, calling him Shu, and asks how he is doing, leaving Shota feeling a mix of surprise and anxiety at her unexpected visit. Just then, Mime enters, curious about the guest. Misuzu explains that, as Shota's childhood friend, she worries about him and wants to check on how he's doing. Mime excitedly tells Harumi that Misuzu is from Shota's orphanage, prompting Harumi to ask if they call him Sho there. Shota, puzzled, asks Misuzu how she found their address and turns to Mizore, questioning if letting Misuzu in was a good idea. Mizore, while admiring Misuzu's determination to see Shota, had subconsciously let her in. Shota voices his concern about Misuzu uncovering their family's secret, that they are vampires. Mizore reminds Shota that risks are part of humans and vampires cohabiting, casually suggesting that eliminating Misuzu could be a solution. Hearing this, Shota grows anxious. She insists he must ensure Misuzu leaves, especially with Yuki's feeding day approaching. Shota reluctantly agrees, realizing the complications her visit has brought. As Misuzu requests a tour and comments on the peculiarities of Shota's new home, he feels conflicted about handling her questions. Noting the presence of 3 other children, she finds it unusual that they adopted Shota. Meanwhile, Mime, Harumi, and Yuki watch from afar, whispering about Shota's clear panic under Misuzu's scrutiny. Shota tries to explain their living arrangement, claiming he's there as a bodyguard for the girls, which astonishes Misuzu. He mentions the challenges of only girls in such a large house. Just then, Mr. Yakumo enters, warmly asking if Misuzu is Shota's friend and encouraging her to feel at home, heightening Shota's anxiety as her suspicions deepen. During the tour, Misuzu's attention falls on a suspicious room. When she questions Shota about it, he nervously claims it's a shelter for stray cats. She points out the bloodstains on the carpet, and he quickly explains that they're from scratches he got from the cats. Noticing a jail cell within the house, her suspicions deepen. Shota tries to brush off her concerns, claiming the cage is for keeping aggressive cats in check, but she's doubtful, noting it's big enough to hold a person. When she opens the fridge and finds only wrapped meat and tomato juice, her worry grows about his well-being. Commenting on how he looks thinner, she expresses sympathy, convinced he's not being cared for properly in this household. She urges him to come back home with her. Feeling cornered, Shota tries to stay composed as he explains that he can't leave, as the Hiragi family promised to save their orphanage in exchange for his role here. He reminds Misuzu of their crumbling, debt-ridden home, emphasizing why he must stay. Misuzu listens carefully, accepting his reasoning. Shota apologizes for not telling her sooner, admitting he owes her an explanation. She smiles, saying she'll forgive him if that's truly the reason, and prepares to leave. Yuki is impressed that Shota managed to send Misuzu home without revealing too much. Harumi remarks that they really can't underestimate him, while Yuki teases him about having such a cute childhood friend. Mime playfully hints that they overheard his entire conversation with Misuzu. Amid the teasing, Shota reflects on what might have motivated Misuzu's unexpected visit. Yuki expresses relief that Shota chose to stay with them. The group shares warm words, with Harumi noting his good company and Mime eagerly looking forward to attending school together. Mizore remarks that boys are adorable, while Mr. Yakumo notes that Shota lifts everyone's spirits. As they enjoy dinner together, Shota savors chicken legs and reflects on his role in this intricate web of relationships. Harumi notices Shota taking his 3rd piece of chicken, exceeding the 2-piece limit, and advises him to stay calm and avoid overeating out of nervousness. Later that night, during her feeding ritual, Yuki tells Shota she'll bite his neck. Hesitant, he nods, the air thick with nervous tension as she bites him. Outside, Misuzu resolves that if saving the orphanage means sacrificing Shota, she won't let him bear it alone. Determined, she bursts through the door, declaring her readiness to join him as a slave if necessary. The scene freezes as Shota turns wide-eyed at her unexpected entrance. Confusion envelops them as they grapple with the moment's intimacy. Misuzu catches Shota and Yuki in a compromising position, sparking confusion and tension. Startled, Shota demands to know what she's doing there, but Misuzu counters with pointed questions about their relationship, asking if Yuki was sucking his blood. Both Shota and Yuki are left speechless, astonished by the accusation. Panicking, Shota fabricates a story, claiming he and Yuki are dating. Both Yuki and Misuzu stare in disbelief. Misuzu quickly dismisses the idea of Shota having a girlfriend, prompting Shota to challenge her assertion. Just then, Mizore arrives and inquires about the commotion. As they discuss the situation, Mizore questions whether he has been caught as fodder. Shota expresses uncertainty but reassures her that it should be fine. He then confides in Mizore about what happened and asks how Misuzu managed to enter the house when she wasn't supposed to be there. Mr. Yakumo, who has been listening quietly, admits that he let Misuzu in after she claimed to have forgotten something. This jogs Shota's memory of hearing the gate open earlier. Mr. Yakumo apologizes for not realizing it was Yuki's feeding day, prompting Mizore to chastise him for his carelessness. Shota's mind races with thoughts of what might happen next, worrying that they may need to eliminate Misuzu if she learns too much about their family secret. As he heads to his room, Yuki calls out, offering to help manage the situation with Misuzu. Although Shota appreciates her help, he asks why she wants to assist. Yuki explains that she feels responsible and insists on assisting, recognizing how important Misuzu is to him. Shota admits that Misuzu is his childhood friend but is taken aback when Yuki suddenly storms off in anger. Unable to bear the thought of someone being harmed because of her actions, she leaves him puzzled by her sudden mood shift. Misuzu sits alone eating snacks, waiting for Shota and Yuki. When they arrive, she remarks on how long they took. To cover the earlier tension, Shota explains that they aren't supposed to flirt in the house, so they got yelled at. Yuki agrees, and Misuzu accepts the explanation without further questions. Misuzu asks if she can take some tea cakes with her. Shota playfully calls her greedy, but she insists she wants to share them with the children at home. Yuki agrees, allowing her to take the cakes, and Misuzu packs them into her bag. She then becomes curious about how Shota and Yuki's relationship began. Shota interjects that it's a complicated story. Misuzu insists he owes her an explanation as his childhood friend. In a lively tone, Shota claims Yuki seduced him and he fell deeply in love. Winking at Yuki as part of their ruse, he wraps an arm around her shoulder, saying she's really straightforward and commenting that older people are scary, prompting her to pinch him. Misuzu observes their interaction closely and remarks that it isn't just their age difference, but also their vastly different social standings that make their relationship hard to believe. Shota tries to explain but is cut off by Misuzu's disbelief that someone from a wealthy background could genuinely love him. Yuki interjects that she has a soft spot for their differences in social status and cannot imagine leaving him. She looks at Shota for confirmation, and he responds that rich people can be unpredictable. Misuzu questions Shota if he truly likes Yuki enough to date her. As he stammers to respond, Yuki affectionately runs her fingers through his hair, commenting that he wants to be spoiled by someone older. She hugs him tightly and playfully suggests that he enjoys being praised this way. The atmosphere shifts as Misuzu expresses astonishment at their display of affection. Sensing an opportunity to solidify their ruse, Shota insists that they are deeply in love with each other. However, Misuzu challenges them to prove their love through an act of intimacy, specifically asking Shota to suck Yuki's blood. In response, Shota explains that such an act is more potent than a kiss and cannot be done in front of others. Misuzu remains unconvinced, stating that they must prove their love through action. Faced with no other option and knowing the stakes, Misuzu's life hanging in the balance, Shota insists they must go through with it. Yuki realizes the gravity of the situation and determines herself. As tension builds, Shota tears at Yuki's shirt from her shoulder and prepares to bite her neck when Misuzu suddenly forbids him from proceeding. She claims to understand their love now without needing such proof. Frustrated, Shota reminds her that it was she who insisted on a physical demonstration. However, Misuzu reassures him, expressing her belief in their love story, knowing he wouldn't go to such lengths for anyone else. Misuzu raises an eyebrow at this statement, internally reflecting on how foolish Shota can be about relationships. Misuzu, slightly saddened after affirming her trust in them, declares that it's time for her to head home. Meanwhile, Mizore is eavesdropping on their conversation. Misuzu thanks them for their hospitality. Shota checks with Misuzu one last time about leaving so late at night, but she reassures him that the bus stop is nearby and manageable for her to get home alone. Before parting ways, she asks Yuki if they can have a private chat. Misuzu asks Yuki if they are truly dating. Feeling cornered, Yuki admits they are not. Misuzu promises to keep it confidential and adds that she won't hand over Shota. Yuki replies that she won't hand him over either. As their final exchange lingers in the tense air, the life-saving alibi forged among them seems almost futile, given how close they came to chaos tonight. One September morning, Shota wakes to Mizore questioning about the others. As he washes up, he replies that they're likely still asleep. Mizore remarks that it's unfortunate, as summer break has ended, and suggests he wake them. Reflecting on his week with the Hiragi family, he realizes all he's learned is that vampires live in the mansion. He starts with Yuki's room and upon opening the door is startled by her revealing attire. Shocked, Yuki quickly covers herself, scolding him for barging in. Panicking, Shota apologizes, explaining that Mizore asked him to wake her. Next, Shota enters Harumi's room, finding her doing morning yoga. He watches in amazement, wondering how vampires can be so active in the morning. Mr. Yakumo appears, greets him, and then mentions the benefits of a morning jog while wearing a t-shirt that reads *Vampires destroy all humans*. Shota questions the shirt's appropriateness and asks Mr. Yakumo if even as a vampire, he prioritizes his health. Finally, Shota realizes that only Mime remains asleep. Entering her room, he's startled to find a coffin inside. Curious, he opens it and finds Mime sleeping peacefully within. Shocked, he exclaims about a ghost, but Mime wakes and corrects him, asserting that she's a vampire. They both get ready for school and leave together, with Mizore advising them to look after each other and return safely. On the way to school, Mime expresses surprise that they're attending the sane one. Shota shares his preference for a public school over a private one. Mime hints that their school resembles their home and suggests he might stand out there. Confused, Shota tries to understand as Mime suddenly asks him not to speak to her at school and then runs ahead. Arriving at school, Shota is struck by the impressive, prestigious Christian building before him. In class, he introduces himself as Shota Minamoto, wondering if these humans aren't the natural enemies of vampires. He notices the classroom is as clean and orderly as Mime described, but he can't shake the feeling of being out of place. As his classmates begin murmuring, Shota notices their wary expressions and hears whispers labeling him as unapproachable. One student questions his different uniform, while another calls him a delinquent who doesn't fit in. This reminds him of his previous school, where some speculate he lives in an orphanage and had issues with his mother, implying that she had abandoned him. Feeling disheartened by the negative attention, Shota concludes there's nothing good about school. Suddenly, Mime appears, excitedly calling out to him about his transfer, catching both him and his classmates off guard. Her teacher quickly tells her to return to class, leaving Shota to wonder why she would talk to him after forbidding any interaction at school. Mime returns to her class, promising to come back again, leaving Shota to ponder why a vampire like her would choose to come to his class. During lunch break, Shota asks Mime for an explanation. She comments that he looks like a delinquent, leaving him confused. She suggests that her presence in his class boosts his popularity. Understanding her reasoning, Shota listens as she boasts about being the school's idol. Mime reveals that being cute and charming helps her gain attention at school. Despite knowing she's a vampire, he finds it difficult to argue against her claims. She encourages Shota to make friends instead of isolating himself, noting he sticks out like a sore thumb. However, Shota insists he prefers being alone. She pouts at his response, but then smiles before rushing back to her class as he watches her go. As days pass, Shota grows increasingly suspicious about Mime's situation at school. Returning home, Shota helps Mizore wash dishes and brings up Mime's unusual behavior. Mizore giggles softly at his observations, noting how quickly he has picked up on things despite it being his first day. Mizore explains that it was Mime who insisted on attending this school despite the challenges of being a vampire among humans simply because she finds the uniform cute. Intrigued yet skeptical of Mim's choice to attend the school, Shota resolves to keep a close eye on her. He decides to investigate by observing her during lunch, noting that she seems genuinely happy with her friends and there are no signs of trouble. However, when her friend invites her to a cafe after school, she declines, saying she has a family dinner. When another friend suggests a shopping trip the next day, she again declines, citing a lack of money. This behavior raises further questions for Shota, knowing Mim comes from a wealthy family that can afford such outings. He sees her eating lunch alone on the stairs instead of with friends like everyone else. Shota's suspicion deepens as he wonders what lies behind Mim's cheerful facade as the school's idol. The more he observes her interactions, the more convinced he becomes that she is hiding something significant.